This is a Regain Wellness podcast with Jamie Logie, episode 33, Stevia. Is it the best sweetener choice?
That would be the ricin I gave you. I slipped it into that stevia crap that you're always putting in your
Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Jamie Logie. I run regainwellness.com. This is the Regain Wellness podcast. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you taking the time to listen. If you haven't already, swing by regainwellness.com. You can see everything I have over there with all the other podcasts, the blogs. My new book just came out called Taking Back Your Health. It's an ebook. There's different packages available with that. You can check that at regainwellness.com/book. And I want to thank Walter White for part of the intro there. This, don't worry, there'll be no Breaking Bad spoilers, even though that show's been done for a while. I still feel the need to make that disclaimer, even though I think the people who don't watch these shows, they're the spoilers, because we have to not talk about them to not spoil it for them, if you see what I'm saying. But if you've seen the show, you will remember that scene and the thing we're talking about today, Stevia, and how crucial that was in the very last episode. Again, I won't ruin it in case you haven't seen it. But you see Walter White's take on it, and you're familiar with how stevia affects Lydia, and that's all I'm going to say. But we're going to talk about stevia, and if it is showing promise as a sugar substitute or as a sweetener substitute. We'll jump into the whole thing if you're familiar with it, even if you're not familiar with it. So we'll start out with what stevia actually is. And it is a plant, the stevia plant, and it's actually been around and used for thousands of years. It's classified as Stevia rebaudiana, and it's actually part of the sunflower family. So over the years, you might have seen it in different named forms as sweet leaf, can be known as sugar leaf, things like that. And like I said, it goes back a good 1,500 plus years medicinally, especially for use in South America. And it was also used just as a way to sweeten teas and actual medicines as well, not just for its medicinal benefits, but the fact that there are things called glycosides in the leaves, and they were found to give the plant its sweetness and provide 250 to 300 times greater sweetness than sugar, kind of like me. So we want to look into the artificial sweetener issue here and the reason why people have been turning to stevia. So the history of artificial sweeteners is a really kind of long and sordid one. It goes back to substances like saccharin, aspartame, obviously, and many of these sweeteners were actually discovered by accident, specifically aspartame, which was found or discovered during research for ulcer medication. So this is a whole big topic, and I really suggest you listen to my episode all about aspartame and artificial sweeteners, and just to learn the really shady history that went into approving this product and the real negative health effects aspartame and artificial sweeteners have on your health. So on the show notes today, if you go to regainwellness.com/033, so it's the 33rd episode, in there I'll link everything we're talking about, and I'll have a link for that aspartame podcast, and I really suggest you listen to it. You might not ever want to drink a Diet Coke again after hearing all that. So basically, there's always been the hunt for a superior choice to sweeten food or drinks when cutting out sugar. So did stevia kind of come to the rescue? And it's more relatively popular now, but it's actually been used as a modern sweetener since the early 70s. And as the information regarding the other artificial sweeteners was not looking so positive, specifically starting with saccharin, aspartame was more on the scene in the early 80s. But since those early artificial sweeteners weren't looking great, Japan started cultivating the plant as an alternative choice, knowing that it had already been used for centuries. Like, they weren't having to create something, they were just looking back at what had been constantly used. So the first commercial stevia was produced in 1971 by a sweetener company from Japan called Morita Kagaku Koigyo, if I'm saying that right. They were the first. So since then, Japan has been using it in its food products and soft drinks including things like Coke. They've been doing that for quite a while. Coke is now looking to include stevia in its American product. As I don't know if you're familiar with Pepsi Next, but it's the lower sugar alternative to Pepsi that they came out with. It's now available in a green can. They've kind of changed all their packaging. They avoid using high fructose corn syrup. Still uses some artificial ingredients, but they're at least making the changes to avoid like the horrific effects of high fructose corn syrup by going with normal cane sugar. Not that that's a superior choice, but it's at least a bit better. And they're replacing, in Pepsi Next, they're replacing the aspartame with stevia. So, I mean, they're making positive changes. It's still not perfect. There's no reason to be consuming those things, but, you know, better than it had been, that's for sure. So Japan had been using it in Coke and these things for a while, and now it's starting to catch on a bit here. Actually, Japan is the biggest consumer of stevia in the world, accounting for more than 40% of the market for the sweetener. So the way we're using stevia today, it seems almost like we're, like here in North America, we're playing catch up as far as the usage compared to the rest of the world. Honestly, since 1984, other big countries like China have been cultivating and using stevia, along with countries like Korea, Taiwan, Thailand, Malaysia, Peru, Colombia, Paraguay, Israel, Uruguay, Brazil. They've all been on board with this for a bit. So what are if you've been using this before, if you've been considering it, what are the best forms of stevia? Raw stevia is going to be your best bet, but it's not always easy to come across. We usually associate stevia with, you know, the little packets, but raw stevia is the purest form of the plant. You can track it down on like Amazon if you go on there, depending on what country you are and whatever the shipping and custom standards are. You can track it down. Some health food shops will keep it too. What you're going to look for, though, is raw stevia leaf powder is usually going to be a bright green color, which is similar to how the plant looks. It has this kind of bright green tint to it. So with the raw stevia leaf powder, that's what you want to look for. The majority of the stevia you find will be that white extraction, and that comes from the glycosides in the plant where the sweetness was or is. And that's why you see it more commonly in the package forms in the white powder. It's cheaper to produce that way. Some brands, people find that it has a bit of an aftertaste when it's in this a little more refined, like the white refined version of stevia. Some find that aftertaste, it's known to have a bit of a sweet licorice type aftertaste. Not everyone loves it. Some people have no problem with it. But since it's 300 times sweeter than sugar, you don't need that much. So you can experiment with, you know, what suits your taste. You can dial it back. You just need a tiny bit. You don't need teaspoons or tablespoons worth of this. There's so many brands out there. I don't want to try and list them all here, as again, everyone has different tastes, and what might work for me might not suit the taste of you. So this is just trying to educate you on the different forms and versions, including there's liquid stevia. You might have seen. It's kind of a syrupy black liquid, and it's still natural. It comes from boiling the leaves in water, and it can really help enhance the flavor of certain foods. Some people don't find it has as much of that sweet licorice type aftertaste when you find it in the liquid form. And again, like, it doesn't take that much to enhance whatever you're making to add a sweetness in. Even if it's like tea or something, it blends in quite nicely. Other forms of liquid stevia can come from steeping stevia leaves in distilled water, and others made from the white powder are concentrated and mixed with some more water and then preserved with a little grapefruit seed extract. So again, a few different forms of the liquid stevia. So besides the sweetness, is there any health benefits to it? I mean, people are just looking for this as an alternative, but it actually can have some positive health effects, which is a nice plus, which you're not going to get from sugar or aspartame or sucralose or whatever. It can actually help in lowering blood pressure. And this is according to 2 large Chinese studies. When stevia is taken at a high dose, they may help reduce blood pressure. And a lot of studies are showing this, that I will link in those show notes again. So regainwellness.com/033 so you can have a look at these yourself. They also are looking at the fact that stevia may lower blood sugar levels, which is very positive. This can be great, for people suffering from diabetes. And there's a study looking at sucrose, aspartame, and stevia consumers. And those who consume stevia showed much lower what they call postprandial, which is during or related to the period after dinner or lunch, insulin levels. So of those three groups, with the actual sugar, the fake artificial sweetener, and then stevia, they were showing lowered insulin levels after or during those meals, which is very encouraging. The other thing is it may help in preventing heart disease. So they're looking at treatment with stevioside, which is the concentrated extraction from those stevia glycosides we're talking about that were all the sweetnesses. And this was associated with improved insulin signaling and antioxidant defense in adipose tissue and the vascular wall. So this helped in inhibiting the plaque development where it builds up in those walls after this treatment with the stevioside. So this is very interesting stuff. So have a look through these studies here. It's not just all about the sweetener. There's the positive health effects, which is probably why these cultures have been using this stuff for thousands of years. So what else can you use stevia in? Essentially, wherever you would use a sweetener or actual sugar, that's where stevia is going to jump on in. So it's going to be in, tea, coffee, smoothies, yogurt. Some people like to sprinkle it on fruit. It's pretty good in baking. Some people find it doesn't provide as good of baking characteristics as sugar. And since the taste, again, is so potent, you have to be very careful with your portioning. Because if you're just replacing it like you would as a sugar measurement, it's probably going to overpower whatever you're making. If it's me making cupcakes, I got to be careful. But I think of stevia primarily for things like tea and coffee and whatever, and that's one of its best uses. Ideally, just to wrap this up here, I just want to keep it short today, give you some information to get you on your way here. Ideally, you want to avoid having to add sweetness to things and stick with foods in their natural form. Like, obviously, fruit contains a great amount of sweetness on its own. But however, when it comes to these times when you're looking for something sweet to add in, especially into a drink, I think it's best to do yourself the favor and make the best possible decision at the time, which, if you ideally you keep things as plain as possible in their natural state. But like we're saying here, it's about making the best possible decisions. If you had a cup of sugar, a packet of aspartame, and a stevia, 100% the stevia is the best choice. And specifically to help you avoid refined sugar. In my opinion, that's going to be the best thing you can do for your health and wellness goals, is to eliminate or drastically reduce refined sugar. Avoiding the issues with artificial sweeteners, again, is going to be a very wise decision. And that's why you want to reach for something like stevia or keep it on hand so you're not having to turn to those things. Again, check out that episode on the dangers of aspartame and artificial sweeteners just to get you up to speed with that whole issue. Again, if you can find something in its purest form, that's your ideal choice. So finding the raw stevia would be ideal. So have a look around. Like I said, health food shops, sometimes bulk stores can carry it. And again, online, you can track down everything, which is pretty much how I buy most everything I own now is all online. I'm too lazy to even go out shopping. That to me is like a 4-letter word, shopping. Online shopping I can handle because I can do that in my SpongeBob pajamas, so no problems there. After the thing that's good too online is you can read all the reviews of all the different brands and the varieties and just get a good understanding of what is out there. And thankfully, people are more than happy to jump onto reviews sites like on when they're reviewing products or whatever, and they're more than happy to put their 2 cents in, good or bad. So that's very helpful as a consumer, just to steer you in the right direction for the best brands and the best varieties for your needs. Okay, we're going to move into the nutrition fact of the day. We're going to do 2. One is a little more of a concerning one, and one is a positive takeaway. The first one is that in 2011, 29.9 million pounds of antibiotics were sold in the U.S. for meat and poultry production. That's nearly 4 times the 7.7 million pounds sold to treat sick humans. So a very concerning fact. So the positive nutrition fact of the day to take away from here is about cinnamon, and it is a potent antioxidant that can help reduce the risk of blood clots, control blood sugar, and improve insulin sensitivity. And those last two, the controlling of blood sugar and the improved insulin sensitivity, help in preventing fat gain and diabetes. So make sure to sprinkle a little bit of cinnamon in the tea or the coffee, just as we were talking about adding in sweeteners and whatnot. So that's it from me today. Thank you for joining. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to this podcast. I know there's a ton of them out there. So the fact you're here on this one is awesome. And I'm right there with you wherever you go, driving, hiking, waiting in a DMV, whatever. We're there together. It's you and me. So if you do like this show, please subscribe on iTunes. And if you have time, leave a rating and review. It really helps get the show in front of more listeners, and then we're able to help more people. And while you're at it, I was saying, if you're at regainwellness.com, I've also got a free guide available that is called the Healthy Eating Starter Kit. So if you're new to getting healthy and well, it gets you on your feet running with the information you need on things you want to avoid, things you want to include in your diet. It's got some recipes, and it keeps you on the email newsletter, so you get up to date with things I have going on and new episodes and specific articles I'll just do over email. And you can get that by going to regainwellness.com/guide. So thank you for your time, spending it here with me, and hopefully learning a little bit about some things that can make some positive changes in your health. And in the pursuit of your health, your wellness, your fitness, whatever it is, remember, in the long run, it's all about the progress and not perfection. See you next time.